sweetly say, "Hi, Senator Powell. Tell your wife my Sarah I said hello."
And Dr. Osgood, how are you? It's good to see you, and I will let her know. Look at you all. Y'all look good. Y'all are some beautiful people.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Senator. Thank you, Senator. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Leader, my leader.
Okay. I think we should see our newly minted representative here shortly.
Coming along. Y'all have tested everything out. I'm sorry, I was on another Zoom. I was on a live.
Yeah, your staff told me, but you showed up right on time.
There he is.
Okay, let us get started. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. We are to our elected folk. We are on Facebook Live, in addition to being on Zoom. So govern yourself accordingly.
Are we live on Facebook now?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Just so you know. Okay. And so my name is Marsha Ellison. I'm president of the NAACP Fort Lauderdale Broward branch. I'm also an elected official in the Florida State Conference NAACP. And so I wanted to share a couple of things. I think there was an inquiry as to our Senator Chevin Jones. Chevin Jones is in, I believe, South Africa. He was not available to be here this day. He asked, was that a hard set date? Yes, it was. It is, and so we will get him at another time. Representative Driskell is ours. I wanted to when the NAACP called on a bill that we had that we needed, that was very near and dear to us, that we had actually filed on. We put the call out, and the ones that answered are the ones that you see here. Our Senator Bobby Powell, which we have taken for the record from Palm Beach County. They ain't up and running yet, so it's their loss. And and I did contact my counterpart in Hillsborough County, Yvette Lewis, to share it with her that Representative Driskell is no longer hers alone. She has to share us with the rest of the state as well. And so we work with folk who work with us, who answer the call of the NAACP when the phone rings, they call. And we don't have to go through a lot of red tape. Those that know me, I don't do intermediaries. So we like to be able to get things done and about the business. And with that said, I want to start with an opening prayer from our own Judge Alona Holmes. I did get a contact from our Religious Affairs Chair, Minister Bridget Edwards. Her brother is very ill, and so she will not be on. So we'll certainly remember him at the end on Judge Holmes. So with that, if you will open us up, please.
All right, let us pray. Thank you, Madam President. Father, we thank you tonight for your many blessings. God, we thank you for life. We thank you for health. We thank you for the strength that you've given us to be partakers in the struggle to get people to do the right thing. And God, you made us all. And I thank you, God, for touching our hearts and our minds. All of the elected officials that are on this Zoom tonight, and those that may be in the audience, God, we ask you not to bless them. Help them to remember the reason they were elected, to be for the people. And God, I ask you now to make it easy for legislation to pass. It seems very difficult now, but it won't be this way always. And then God, we ask you to bless our president, keep her strong, keep her in the midst of our struggle, and give her strength. Bless us all. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We wanted to make sure you hear from us, by us, and to the electeds. I'd like to have a conversation tonight about what you face when you get there. We have with us Vice President Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown is third Vice President of the Florida State Conference NAACP. He is also the president of the Indian River County branch. And so he's just going to give greetings on behalf of the Florida State Conference NAACP.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening. I bring to you greetings on behalf of the Florida State Conference of the NAACP and our president, Dr. Adori Nweezy, who was not able to be here tonight. I am honored to be a part of this legislative debrief. Where do we go from here? This theme expounds on our NAACP theme, fighting forward. We truly have much work to do. President Marsha Ellison has, as usual, assembled a powerful and dynamic group of minds, hearts, talents, insights, and expertise for tonight's discussion. As many of you have seen, as I go on my little pedestal, our sister who's in line for the Supreme Court, she stands her ground, she's done her thing. But one thing I want to bring forward, I would be remiss if I did not mention, I was an honored, proud Black man as I saw Senator Cory Booker stand tall for his sister, and to show that together we are a powerful group of people, and that we continue to, he refused to allow them to disrespect her and said, not on my watch. Back to the true freedom fighters as we are assembled here today, and we're dedicated to emphasize all the work that is needed to be done. We have a crazy president, we have a crazy governor. So what you bring to the table tonight and what we discuss and how we move forward is very important. And I give you back a true president, a true servant leader, President Marsha Ellison.
Thank you, Vice President Brown. I want to start with Senator Bobby Powell. As I said, he's not ours in Broward per se. However, he is ours in that he works for us tirelessly and as he walks those halls in Tallahassee. He's representing the 30th district. It includes West Palm Beach, and I don't know if the new lines of sight is back and forth, so we're gonna go where it is today, kind of, sort of, in the West Palm Beach area there. But I wanted to make sure that we heard from you, Senator Powell, and the NAACP talks to you. Either the state calls, you answer the phone, the units call, you answer the phone. So just tell us about the environment as a leader of the Black Florida Legislative Caucus, what the environment is when you all showed up this year, as opposed to, not that it's been good any year, but this year in particular, if you will, please, sir.
Well, thank you, President Ellison. What I can tell you is that on this call, you have some strong advocates who have had the opportunity to serve with me in the Florida Legislative Black Caucus, especially Representative Fentrice Driskell, who is in line to be leader of the Florida House. And she's been our backbone when it comes to the Florida Legislative Black Caucus and some of the issues that we fought for. When we talk about police reform, had it not been for Representative Driskell, we wouldn't have got that done, and it looked bleak. But what I can tell you as the chairman of the immediate past chairman of the Florida Legislative Black Caucus, and we'll have a new strong leader and leader Camilla Brown, or Chair Camilla Brown, as she takes the helm, we're all fighting to make sure that our communities, our Black communities, or our communities of color are represented strongly and with dignity. Now, this governor and this Republican-dominated legislature came with an agenda this year. But we, as members of the Black Caucus, as well as legislators ourselves, did not come to play. When it came to the Stop Woke Act, which I have renamed the We Hope It Teaches Everyone Act, White Act, we were not here to play with that. When it came to the Don't Say Gay bill, when it came to abortion, alimony, we saw a number of culture war type bills this year in the legislature, and we had to remind our colleagues that nobody has called us related to the teaching of Black history or their kids feeling offended because they have to learn Black history. No, and no one has called us because parents are now at home and they're seeing their kids. They knew that this came about because they felt uncomfortable watching George Floyd die under the knee of someone. So when it came to that, we let it be known. I'll tell you another thing about this. People are suffering here in the state of Florida, especially Palm Beach County, especially all over when it comes to the increases in our property insurance, as well as the rates of rents. People cannot afford to live in Florida. A few years ago, there was a man, he created his own party, and I'm about to join it. The rent is too dang high. Well, President, in the essence of time, I've muted myself, but I can go on and on, but I know we have other people.
Thank you, Senator. I want to move now to our own Representative Fentrice Driskell. Representative Driskell, as I said earlier, and I really wasn't kidding. It matters when you elect folk, and they'll say when they're running, hold me accountable, and they say they're going to do this and do that. However, you can't get folk on the phone, or you won't see them until it's time to run again, and they'll be in your black church trying to ask for your vote. So Representative Driskell, we want to thank you for all the work that you've done. And when we needed someone to sign on that bill for mental health and Baker acting, I want to say that both you, Senator, and Senator Powell answered that. So if you will tell us what you found. Senator Osgood and I had an opportunity to visit when Representative Campbell was being sworn in. And so we had an opportunity to see you in action firsthand. So we were certainly proud. And if I was over there with Dr. Osgood, I'd say deliciously proud when you took the podium in order to share with us the vision and give direction to the rest of the representatives. So if you will, Representative Driskell.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is so great to see you. I bring you greetings from Hillsborough County, from my president, Yvette Lewis. Don't you get me in trouble, Marsha. President Ellison.
Oh, I already did. I called to brag about it again this afternoon.
We're gonna have to do a custody agreement or something, but it is my delight to have been asked to participate in your legislative wrap up. And thank you for doing this, because it's so important. You opened up and you asked what it's like to be there. And I just wanted to address that first before I talk about the mental health and the Baker Act bill. And what it's like to be there is, we feel like, as members of the minority party and as the vanguard for Black Florida, trying to protect all Floridians, yes, but keeping a watch as members of the Florida Legislative Black Caucus for issues that impact our people, regardless of which party they fall on. It is like being a watcher on the wall. I feel like we are the watchmen. We're the wall, but we're also the watchmen, and we watch these things happen, and we push for that accountability, and we never go down without a fight, even if we don't have the numbers to stop all of the bad things that come. Like Chair Powell said, we never go down without a fight. But then it's important for us to be able to tell what happened, to tell the people, to tell the community what happened, so that when it comes time for the next election cycle, people know, and they know how important and why it is so important to vote for candidates who reflect their values, and for those that do not reflect their values, to vote them out. And there were so many examples of that this session, of why it is so important to vote, whether you take the and collectively all of these bad bills, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, so I don't want to belabor the point now, but to me, the theme of this session was oppressing the stories of marginalized people. And if you have a womb, you are oppressed because nobody cares about the context of your life and will not allow you to have an abortion after 15 weeks, even if you were subject to rape, incest, or human trafficking. If you are members of the Black community like us, we are oppressed in that our history can no longer be taught in truthful and accurate ways for fear that it might make somebody feel bad with the anti-CRT bill. If you are a member of the LGBTQ plus community, you can no longer be taught in classrooms about your family and what that's like if you're K through 3. If you're an immigrant, right, the anti-immigration bill, so many bills designed to suppress our story. So it is important for you to do these forums, to do this, and so we can tell the people what happened. I was really honored to carry that the Baker Act reform bill with Senator Powell, and it would be transformative once we were able to get that passed. And even though it didn't pass this legislative session, I think we still made some headway in sparking conversation about what needs to happen. Even if you just take something as simple as a parent being notified before their child is hauled off by law enforcement for a Baker Act. The law says that a parent is supposed to be notified, but that's not how it actually works in practice. Just the rights that our kids need to know that they have when they're subject to Baker Act, not to mention trying to prevent the overusage of Baker Act against Black and brown kids. So it was an absolute honor to carry that bill and to push for some of those tough conversations to be had. What was encouraging to me is that I was able to find some allies in the House across partisan lines. I think that there are many people who know that the Baker Act system is broken and who want to be a part of reforming it in ways that actually will work for young people and their families. And so we're going to continue to work on this bill in years to come because there's so much work to be done. But it was good to start having that conversation so we can plant the seeds as we push for those reforms going forward.
Thank you, Representative. Next, we have my sister. If I'm going through a door, the one that I want with me is always going to be now Senator Rosalind Osgood. And for those people who are saying Senator-elect, you're on the Late Show. She is the senator, our senator. And I know we got a lot of people claiming her. I see her with all her pink and green as usual. I'm not something about them either. Senator, you're NAACP to us. You have been. I looked and I found pictures of her working with the NAACP that was over a decade ago, and just being there. And so I was happy to when the 8th finally came, and we could finally move on with the representation part of it. But someone who has through education has worked with us tirelessly. And we'll continue to do so, I'm sure, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But our own Senator, Dr. Rosalind Osgood. Senator?
Thank you so much, Madam President, and thank you to Senator Bobby Powell and Representative Fentrice Driskell, and to Rep. Campbell. Thank you so much for your fight and the work you did this legislative session. My election was strategically set on March 8th so that I would not make this legislative session. It would be very difficult to go into something not prepared. But I have been paying attention to what is taking place. I want to say that the work that was done there on behalf of Representative Campbell and those that I represent in Broward County, we were able to get dollars into the city of Pompano, over $1 million for state housing initiative partnership programs. And the city of Pompano also received a $500,000 grant from the African American Cultural History Grants. The city of Lauderdale Lakes was awarded $402,995 for their Greenway Trail, and the city of Lauderdale Lakes received gun violence money in the tune of $356,000. And we know that we need that with the stuff that we continue to see in our communities and in schools. The city of Lauderdale also received $271,000 for water replacement. And the city of Fort Lauderdale, one of the organizations here, the Mount Olive Development Corporation, received $496,000 for the African American Culture Grant to renovate the old New Mount Olive Church building. So those were some deliverables that I applaud the representatives and the senators for delivering on behalf of District 33. District 33 did not have a senator, but it was certainly represented in the work that you guys are doing, and thank you. So I have not been in the legislative, but I have been writing. I put a link in the chat of a piece I wrote, Democracy Now. And I just think we must continue to understand that our democracy is under attack. It is a literal attack that we're under. And we can't, I don't think, Senator Powell, that our communities are too aggressive about it. I don't think we're outraged enough. As we see the whole retaliation from George Floyd, we have to understand what's going on as we see policy being made, especially in the state of Florida, where we find ourselves at a time where we have people literally trying to take away our rights, trying to eliminate our power, our ability to choose, and our ability to complain about what we don't like. You can't say certain things, you can't protest, and all of the horrific voter suppression laws that we see coming forward, all of the hoops that people are given to vote. It is a direct attack on democracy. I am pro-democracy, and we have to continue to fight back. We may not have the numbers in the Senate and the House, but if the community join us, organizations like the NAACP that's doing a great work, we have to start organizing and thinking about the bus loads of Black people that's gonna join us at the Capitol. That has to be a part of the plan, that the community connects with us to strengthen our arms, to have people see our faces when they're making decisions and bills to harm us and to harm our kids. When I think about the attack of the school system right now and how serious it is, it still keeps me up at night. When you start saying a kid can't say gay, or if a parent is uncomfortable, they sue the school district. What that translates to is more money out of the classroom, less money to give teachers and staff raises. This is our money as taxpayers. We want more resources and more monies into our schools, not taken away. When you tell me the way that something makes somebody feel is more important than the actual harm that those actions has caused to certain people, it is unacceptable. When you think about public policy, I was thinking yesterday, Judge Holmes, when I used to teach public policy valuation at Nova Huizenga School of Business. You take about 5 to 10 years and you analyze policy. If it is not working, you change it. You're looking for best practices. You're looking for lessons learned. This country has a lot of lessons learned that we haven't learned from. So we have to start addressing these things that are systemically racist to impact certain people while other people benefit. We have to start talking about an anti-racist America. To have to fight for 4 months to simply use masks to protect children and staff in school is unheard of. I mean, as a local school board member who was elected by the local citizenry to make policies for the school. So we continue to see the governor doing his own thing with his own maps, vetoing things that he don't like. It's all an attack on democracy. That's why you have municipal government, school board, you have the House, you have the Senate. It's not a dictatorship. So these types of forums are very important for us to be engaged in, to continue to use it to impact the community and inform the community. It's just not enough for your representatives and your senators to be in Tallahassee alone without you having information, you being empowered to write letters, to send emails. Once someone is elected, irregardless of their political party, if they are the governor, they're everybody's governor. And we're going to have to level up to make sure that we are holding people accountable with sending communication to them. But brothers and sisters, I tell you, and it hurt me to my heart, and I know you hurting too, like I'm hurting. 4 years ago, 30,001 of y'all didn't vote. And we've been feeling the pain of it ever since. You cannot be a registered voter and not go vote. If you're not registered, you need to get registered. I was blown away in the January and March election as I began to chase votes, who didn't send in their mail-in ballots, to find professional people that I go to church with, I pray for, those that I work in the community with, had not turned in their mail-in ballots. And when I called them, they said, oh, we were gonna sit this one out. We don't have an opportunity to sit out any election. People died for us to have this right to vote because the other side is counting numbers. And if you're not exercising your right to vote, they're going to come up with something to take that right because they'll say you don't want it because you were not using it. So thank you, Madam President, for this forum. And I'm trying not to get into talking too much about schools because y'all know how I love kids. That's never going to change. And I'm shifting positions, but I'm not shifting my advocacy for public school education, affordable housing, and the things that impact the common people, my homeless brothers and sisters, the elderly. We have a major elderly population here in Broward County. And I can tell you, just trying to get access to the Medicaid, ABC, and all that, it's like an hour and 45-minute process that there's no way my 87-year-old granddad could do on his own. And I'm sure there's hundreds and thousands of people, other elderly people, just like him. So thank you for this opportunity to serve as your senator for District 33, which is now changing to District 32, which will be the cities of Tamarack, Sunrise, Lauderhill, Lauderdale Lakes, Fort Lauderdale, Plantation, North Lauderdale, and Oakland Park. And somebody texted me and asked me, yes, I have filed to run for that seat. You spoke clearly in the primary election that you wanted me as your senator. You spoke even louder in the general election. So I am here as long as you cast your vote and give me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Osgood. Our next speaker is no other than Representative Daryl Campbell. Now, Representative Daryl Campbell literally hit the ground running. Drove up and had to really get to work. As I shared with Representative Campbell when he was on the campaign trail, he really has some big shoes to fill because Representative Bobby Dubose was on speed dial. We spoke, not a week passed during session that we didn't speak. Texts, emails, all that, and I have no idea who his staff was because I never used them. I always text and call him directly, and I said I didn't vote for them. I voted for you, and I knew, we have a lot of stuff going on, and so I need you to share with me the updates. We, in particular, off the top of my head, SB 90. As we move through, I knew that there would be litigation. I knew that we needed to, depend on both our representative and our senators to try to make it not as bad. But you couldn't stop it. It would be terrible, but not as terrible. And so I was delighted and am delighted that he is our newest representative for the current District 94. You'll have to tell us what number is going to. None other than our own Representative Daryl Campbell. Representative, you have the floor.
Well, thank you for having me here, and thank you, Madam President. It's been a pleasure to serve for District 94. I'm slightly upset that it's changing so quick, but I bring on the challenges. As you know, it's been a year of just unknown, and so just being thrown in the fire and just having to work. I haven't even got a chance to do some sightseeing in Tallahassee just because it's been so much going on. As we know, I got in, and by the time I got in, I was past the deadlines of putting any bills or putting any appropriations. So immediately was trying to find the money and where was it at and what I can do on my end to ensure that, whatever has been put in for Broward County got pushed in its full capacity. And so I started building relationships with members in the House. And then I know the senator saw me trickle over to the Senate side, and I was able to come up with my own list and put that in and help to get things pushed. A majority of the stuff that Senator Osgood has already stated. And so it's really have been a learning curve. There has been a number of bills, as has been stated, as far as being put through. And my first bill that I had the opportunity to speak on my very first day being there was the critical race theory bill. And it was just, it it was just surreal, just sitting there. Like you see it from the outside, but when you're sitting there and they're giving the explanations that they're giving, they're telling you that it's based off of how they feel, and they're not giving any type of assessment. It's based off of if the parents feel this way or if the child feels that way, and it's I've never seen anything like that, and that's just not how we operate. And then there's just the blatancy of just their answers, like, we know how this is going to go. So it just tells me, tells the rest of my colleagues that we just got to work 3 times harder than what they're doing, and we're going to see changes and seats flipped in the House and in the Senate. And I'll make sure to put in that energy. A bill that was definitely concerning to me, definitely all of them, but one of them was the time limitations of the juvenile detention care center, keeping juveniles in jail for a lot longer period of time, which was surreal to me. And as I tried to comprehend what was being said, it was not translating. And so one of my first amendment that I got in was the just ensuring that we add a little bit more research into how does this translate into the psychological effects of our children. You know, we know through research that kids being away from school inside a juvenile detention center, they are losing they're losing a lot, and it does not help towards their ability to catch up with the school. And so what I did was ensure that amendment get put in, and we track it. We track the recidivism. We would have been able to look at how the psychological effects were playing on, look at the race, look at sex, we look at all types of things that would not even cost us a dime. We wouldn't even have to put that in appropriations because we had a whole arm that would be able to conduct this research. And you know, it was unfortunately denied. And so we're gonna come back next session. We're gonna try to get that re-put in, but just those type of bills being put in with no concerns, and then the pushback being that, oh, our juvenile detention center is working to a course, and so when I made the comment that you guys wouldn't even put your dogs inside of the detention center to live, that's when you start to see people feel uncomfortable in their seats and begin to speak up. And so it shows the concerns of that they rather get their hairs raised towards a comment referred to dogs rather than to our human beings, and it's just sad. And so we did do some good things in the House, ensuring that we get some good bills passed, and one of the good bills that we got passed was the managed care plan performance and the veteran suicide prevention. And so if anybody knows me, one of my issues are that I'm focusing on are definitely mental health, and so just to see those get across and just a little help and focus towards those populations and those situations definitely has made a difference. And so I'm pumped, I'm ready, equipped. It's sad that I have to go back into campaign mode, but you know, it comes with the territory. I'm ready to go into campaign mode, and I'm ready to work for the community in my city, my counties, and doing that. And so, and that's what I will just do. And I look forward, and I challenge anybody, you know, looking for what do we do. We have to get involved. We have to get engaged. We have to continue to push, invest, put your money where your mouth is, and put it into some of these campaigns that we know that these seats can be flipped. And I'm not just saying in Broward County, I'm saying outside, up north. All right. So I'm looking forward. I know I'm going to be knocking on doors, not just in my county, but I'm looking to go outside of my county, go ahead and knock on doors. And so I'm hoping that you viewers are ready and willing and able and looking forward to this fight. I think for me, I found most of my passion in Tallahassee when I saw people from my city come up there and actually let their voice be heard. And so that support is huge. And so we need to show that other members in this party or that support our issues are supported, and we need to do everything we can to get them elected.
Thank you, Representative. We have on here today one of the certainly two of our presidents, as I see, the president of the Miami-Dade County branch and the president of the Tri-City branch. And Ms. Daniela Pierre from the Miami-Dade branch has a question regarding the Woke Act. She says it appears to contradict Florida State Statute 1003.42, which what can we do to limit its impact in our classrooms and still uphold the guidelines of the statute? And that's anyone who will take that on.
I'll start if that's okay. The so-called Stop Woke Act actually contradicts itself. If you read portions of the bill, it talks about employees. It also talks about in a teaching environment, but then it goes on in certain areas. It says this is not to prevent someone from teaching about African-American history or and several other things. It also has a point that I believe Rep. Driskell got put into the bill with regard to the African diaspora. I also pointed out when I was talking about the bill, they changed some language. They got rid of the word, it was race. They added race. I think they got rid of race and added color or something like that. And I told them that, you know, I threw a little wrench in there that we would prefer that they do ethnicity as opposed to color, because when we hear color, we hear black, right? NAACP. When I hear color, if you're going to call me a colored person, I hear you saying black. And I told them there was a time when we were colored. So change it back to what y'all had, ethnicity. There are a lot of things in that bill, but you'll see they talk about stories of inspiration. And that was another question. This is not to prevent you from teaching stories of inspiration. Well, tell me what's a story of inspiration. Is it Emmett Till? Is that a story of inspiration? Is it Martin Luther King? Because Martin Luther King is what every one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle references when they start talking about civil rights. Judge a person by the content of his character and not the color of his skin. But they forget that Dr. King was also the one who told us about the other America, where there's one America that lives off the milk and honey of the land, and while there's another America that's poor and that are not prosperous, that are at the bottom, where there's a Dr. King who talked about from the letter from the Birmingham jail. So when we look at this legislation that was passed, there is very, very little cause of action in it, but it was a conversation starter, right? This is the beginning. If this governor that you all have wins re-election, this will be something that comes back next year. Same thing with at a higher level, right? Same thing with the Don't Say Gay bill. Same thing with the elections. We have had elections bills over the last 2 years where they've said that our elections have been fine and perfect and Florida did it right, but we continue to change elections in Florida, especially when it comes to vote by mail. Let me tell you a secret. There's no such thing as a Democratic seat or a Republican seat here in the state of Florida, because the truth is, if you can increase the number of people that come out and vote as Democrats, even in a seat that's dominated by Republicans, you can still win. Why? Because if you look at the numbers, generally about 10 to 20% of people come out and vote in an election. If you can increase that number to 50%, you can win any seat in the state of Florida. But that's what they don't want you to know and understand. And that's why they're working to purge the voter rolls. And that's why they're doing all of these things and keeping our people, when they say stop woke, that's exactly what they mean. They don't want you to be informed. They don't want our people to know what's going on in Tallahassee. The newspapers don't cover the way they should. I'm in Palm Beach County. We have the Palm Beach Post. And whenever the Palm Beach Post reports on the legislature, I was the Senate Democratic leader pro tem. That means I was the second person in charge of the Democrats in the Senate. I was the chairman of the Florida Legislative Black Caucus, meaning that prior to Ramon taking the helm as the leader of the House Democrats, I should have been known as the highest ranking Black elected state legislator in the state. But rarely did the Palm Beach Post report a number of the things that I talked about. Other people, other newspapers picked it up, the Sun Sentinel, the Orlando Sentinel, all over the state, but not here in Palm Beach County. And you have to recognize that that is a disservice to our people. Now, we have to have channels to get this information out. But what I will tell you, as far as the Stop Woke Act that passed this year, that is a watered down version of what the governor really wants to do. All it really did this year was start the conversation and get us fired up. Trust me, if this man gets reelected, we have a fight on our hands. Believe that.
Thank you. Representative Driskell.
Thank you, Madam President. And so the House Bill 7, the anti-CRT bill, amends that statute that was asked about in the chat. Florida statutes 1000 sorry, I just lost it, 1003.42. It amends some of that. And, you know, the question is, how can we limit its impact in the classroom? I don't see a way to do it. I wish I could tell you there was a way to do it. I don't see a way to do it. What is going to happen going forward is, yes, we can teach Black history, but I feel like it's going to be only to a point. And I feel like, and maybe the educators on the room or those who are in education can chime in on this. I talked to my sister who's an educator and my mom who's a retired educator and friends about it. What it's going to do is have a chilling effect on how things are taught in the classroom. And I'm so tired of us putting teachers on their heels, teachers who we should hold up on a pedestal for how hard they work with pay that is not commensurate with the work that they put in. We are putting them on their heels and going to make it such that they're afraid to teach, I believe, particularly Black history in such a robust way, because what the bill says, and I'll read this to you, how it says, however, classroom instruction and curriculum may not be used to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view inconsistent with the principles of this subsection or state academic standards. Let's focus on that part, to persuade students to a particular point of view. There is some information that objectively is persuadable. It's persuasive, I mean, right? If you were teaching about the horrors of slavery, anybody with a heart, anybody with compassion would be persuaded to know that that is bad. You know, are we now subjecting our teachers and our school districts to litigation just because if they teach a persuasive subject in an objective way and somebody felt bad about it? This is the can of worms that we are opening. But the time to stop the impact of this bad bill was before it was introduced. It was electing people who have the values and the good sense to not introduce bills like this in the first place. So it's going to have to be sorted out in litigation, I believe, unfortunately.
Thank you, Senator Osgood. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, to add on to what Rep. Driskell said, she hit that real point. A part of it is when you bring up that conversation, because teachers will be afraid to be litigated against or afraid to go to court, a lot of times they're not going to even try to teach Black history, which in my 12 years of high school, middle school, elementary, whatever, rarely did I have a teacher who was capable of teaching Black history the way it needed to be taught.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Osgood, for your comment. And also, Judge Holmes, I believe there was also a bill, was it 802, that had to do with, it sounds a lot like the governor's answer to our promise program. If you will share just a little bit of that before Senator Osgood speaks on what 802 included.
Yeah, that was House Bill 802, I believe, that gave strict enforcement authority to the Commissioner of Education for security and setting up a school police force or something like that. So if you all can, you know, when we saw that, we just knew what it was channeled towards Broward County and what had happened 4 years ago at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. So,
and our Promise program.
And definitely the Promise program. They really want to get rid of Promise, and it's only because of Nicholas Cruz. But you know, the truth be told, he was 18 years old. He did not go to the Promise program. So you can't say he was in there and the program failed. He just didn't go. And you know, if it had been a little black boy or girl, they would have already been expelled and put somewhere in an alternative school. But he was allowed to roam around. So I'll pull up the bill and give you the actual text that passed, but I was told that the governor did sign it.
Okay. Senator Osgood.
So as we look at the history of this nation, we know that it is policy and laws that even put racism in place. When you go back to the 740 Negro Act, where it talks about African Americans will be enslaved now from this time and ever before. When schools were segregated in places like Virginia before, they would mix the kids in school, they shut down the school system. So education, we know, is the vehicle to preparing citizens to operate effectively and efficiently in a democracy. So education is under attack. Public policy is being weaponized against certain systems like education to hurt certain people, and it's people of color. When you get into talking about teachers have enough on their plates, politics has no place in education in this way. Teachers should be allowed to teach what they need to teach. We have one bill that says it's mandatory that you teach Black history in schools. And for years, we've allowed school districts to get away with starting that history at slavery. Instead of teaching Black history 5,000 years ago, where you teach Black kids about how they invented calculus, geometry, and math back in Egypt when they were kings and queens and entrepreneurs, the founders of most religion. We started at slavery, but we want to talk about making somebody feel some kind of way. So we don't even give the kids the part of their history that tells them the strong pedigree that they came from. I'm of the mindset that when they started looking for slaves to bring here, it was not just because we were strong and able to work. It was because we had the intellectual capacity to build a civilization. We had already done it before. We had the intellect, we had the cognitive capacity to build a civilization. They wanted it replicated, but they wanted to control it. This attack on education is very serious. A teacher could be sued, the district could be sued, and then the person be sued individually. Nobody is going to set them up. At the same time now, we're doing one thing to hurt teachers in their profession, but then we running around talking about how much money we giving to pay teachers more. You can't have it both ways. You either love the teachers or you hate the teachers. And right now the teachers are not feeling the love because oftentimes the money for raises target like the new teachers or one group of teachers. Nothing has ever been done to level out or esteem those teachers that's been in the district for 20, 22 years. So they're retiring. We don't have enough teachers right now in education across the state of Florida. And these kind of laws and rules will certainly not make education an attractive field for people to major in and go into college. And what we will see then is more private schools set up to take the dollars to educate kids, schools that's not going to be friendly about taking our kids because they have a choice as to what kids they take and what kids they don't take. This legislation is very serious. You see a lot of the safety stuff coming to fruition, all because of what happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, which was horrific. It was tragic. One day I'm going to write a book about how board members felt during that horrific incident because everybody make you unhuman when you're an elected official, but it's pain on a whole nother level. We cannot have knee-jerk reactions to certain things and put public policy in place that ultimately hurts the very institution that we're trying to move forward. Senator Powell, you know, normally when you make legislation, you're trying to correct the problem. So my question, Madam President, what parents have been offended? Where's the documentation of the complaints that came forth that says teaching Black history, teaching kids about their past, the history of this nation? It's American history. It ain't Black history, it's American history. Where is the documentation that this has caused harm to anybody that we need to address it? And finally, let me just finish, because we got to understand the game that's being played with the names. So you got HB 7, you called it the Individual Freedom Bill. Well, what you're doing is taking away the freedoms. You call it the Woke Act. It's all a play on words. It's a peek into the Urban Dictionary and a twist on words. When we hear certain words, we go for it a lot of times without looking at the devil and the details of what's going on with it. And we have to continue to have these forums, share, break down this legislation, all the other things that are attached to it. Because sometimes as a policymaker, one thing in that bill can make you vote no on it, and it could be 10 other things that are good, but this one thing is going to hurt your community so bad you can't vote on the whole bill. So they attach all of these things together: reducing school board members' pay, giving school board members term limits. I think I'm okay with the term limits, but now why all of a sudden you want to reduce the pay of school board members? Because people of color, I worked 2 and 3 jobs the whole time I was on the school board. Nobody can afford to just take a job and work one job and make $23,000, $24,000 a year unless you come from a certain background. So all of these things are tied together to keep us from having representation, keep us from having a voice, keep us from putting policies in place that's going to help move the whole community forward, not just a certain group. And y'all know me, I'm going to Tallahassee. I'm a novice, but the one thing God has given me is discernment and how to use this big mouth. I had cancer in my throat for 2 years that was trying to shut this mouth. But God brought me through it, and this mouth is louder and stronger. And I'm going to be talking and calling all of y'all and writing and sharing this information so that we know what's going on, so that we could pray and we can strategize, because faith without works is dead. I'm tired of people just going to church. We got to do more than just go to church. We got to vote, and we got to be involved to hold up the arms of our elected officials. Moses was strong because Aaron and Hur held up his arms. And that's what we need as policymakers.
Thank you, Doc. Apparently, in the Senate Bill 802, it says the Commissioner of Education shall oversee and enforce school safety. That is very, very dangerous, particularly for us. Now, we fought hard to decrease the school-based arrests, and you all know that throughout the state, it's always Black boys followed by Black girls, followed by Hispanic boys, followed by Hispanic girls, and way down the list you got white kids who were accused of the same infractions. However, the punishment was different, and so many of the districts started to get an internal programs in order to deal with the issue at hand, to stop these children from being arrested for what we know is delinquent behavior. I'm not suggesting that anyone throw an M&M. What I am saying that if you threw the M&M, no matter what it was, plain or peanut, you ought not to be locked up for that. And I say that jokingly, but it happened, and the child was actually arrested for running in the hallway. And so when you have this now power taken away from districts to discipline their own children, and given to this Secretary of Education, and particularly where we are now in this administration, then we're in trouble. So we have to consider that certainly for as we move past on to voting. Rodney Baltimore asked, so there are some books. So Rodney Baltimore is a radio personality here for Cox Radio, and an avid civil rights activist. And he writes books like To Kill a Mockingbird and Frederick Douglass' narrative. Are they banned under this new, or could they be, I guess, under these new statutes? Anyone?
Well, let me give a First Amendment analysis, and then I'll let the representatives, because they're going to have to face this when we get to the book burning part of the legislative session next session. But there are certain books that can be deemed to be lacking of any social value. And so those books have already been vetted in lawsuits years ago. And so that's why they remain on the shelves of libraries. But this governor doesn't seem to care what the federal government does. He's running his own empire, the national state of Florida, in which he is the king. And he was elected to be governor, but he acts very monarchical. So there very could well be a list of books that will come out in a bill, either, and you know, you all like to do companion bills, so maybe you can explain to the audience what those are. But you like to do companion bills, so there may be already a Senate and a House bill with this information of books, a list of books that they like to ban. But there's some federal case law already out there. But like I said, he went against the federal mandates for masks and everything, you know, because this is his little fiefdom. So I'll leave that up to I've been waiting all night to say this. My sorrow, Representative Fentrice Driskell.
Thank you, Soror, Judge Holmes. And so it is interesting, under the anti-CRT bill, it's possible, right? It's possible if those books are deemed in a student's mind, which is subjective, that the teacher was trying to get them to think in a certain way and to feel a certain way. It's possible for that to lead to litigation under this new law. But there's another law. I think this one died though. There was a bill, but you need to be aware of it because, you know, these bills have a way of coming back, and I'm not sure Senator Powell might get me straight on this if it bounced to the House or what happened. But there was a book banning bill that we considered this year too, basically that would provide for this entire online process for people to object to the books that are in the classrooms. I mean, we are literally turning back the clock to the days of book banning. And it's so broad, so overbroad, this bill, that you could have somebody in another state who could object to what your kid is reading. Like, why not leave that to be a decision that's up to local control? And some of the examples that were cited in the committee hearings were, you know, well, they're talking to kids about, you know, LGBTQ families, and they're showing LGBTQ cartoons to families. Whereas, you know, the Democratic senators countered and said, well, there are LGBTQ plus kids in the schools. Like, what are you trying to say, that these families don't exist? I mean, so it is very dangerous. Also, the same tactics were used with that bill as was used with Stop Woke, as was used with Don't Say Gay, which is the very thing that they're trying to accomplish. They will sit up there, stand up there, hold the microphone and say that is the very thing that the bill doesn't know. I am so tired of being gaslit and looking at a bill, knowing the impact that it will have on our people, and then having the sponsors of that bill stand up and say, oh no, it doesn't do this, as though we're supposed to just take their word for it. So yes, I think that we are in trouble with books that are objectively persuasive. I think it could lead to litigation under the Stop Woke Act.
And
Thank you.
I like to add.
Representative Campbell, right ahead, sir.
Play out in the school system is, so now district is going to have to create a position and hire a person, take more money to hire a person to go through those lists to make sure that they're following this. And they're already under-resourced, already need money for the existing staff. So that's how it comes to an implementation nightmare for a school district.
Thank you.
And that's exactly what I was about to say. They were talking about training the librarians and librarians going on these these strict trainings, and they decide what those books is, and they will go on a list online that'd be open to the public, and for them to say these books should not be on there. And so I just want people to know that this is a larger play, because you got to remember, we follow Texas. And then after we follow Texas and do what we do here in the state of Florida, everybody else start following suit. As you can see, they're taking our playbooks and they're utilizing for their legislature. As you can see in Georgia, they're now fighting the Don't Say Gay bill, and all these other states that's introducing it as well. And so it's important that we be mindful of how they're implementing this, and because they're going to utilize this system and they're going to put it in systems all across the states. To Rodney's Baltimore's question, when that book that you described, Kill a Mockingbird, was posed in debate, my colleague was shut down in asking that question, and they refused to answer that question. As a matter of fact, they came up with some other book that was no comparison. Is like it didn't even make sense in the gentleman's rebuttal. But yeah, they have been very avoided in our questioning.
Well, I think we saw one book that was presented to Judge Brown Jackson. We could probably look to be banned. The one on anti-racist babies that we never even heard of, and all of that. I think they will probably be adding that to the list. Yes, Senator Powell.
I'll tell you that the bill related to education that was passed by Joe Gruters, I believe Gruters passed the bill that did term limits. I don't know if it passed in the House, but it did finally pass on the Senate side. And Bracey, Senator Bracey's mom, who wrote a book related to her experience, as she was the person who integrated schools in Gainesville, and her experience and what happened to her book, if someone felt offended, would be placed on that list, where they call it instructional materials. Any new instructional materials that are introduced, and it's a part of the same bill as the term limits bill, any new instructional materials will have to go before a panel to be determined if it can pass or be placed into schools. And if someone objects to it, it goes through a whole process, which could lead to a book or any instructional material being banned throughout the state of Florida at some point. So that becomes very, very dangerous. And yes, in the Senate, that was attached to and I was trying to look for it while my colleagues were talking, but that was attached to the bill that comes up with term limits for school board members.
Okay. I don't want to make sure we don't want to leave without talking about any voter suppression bills, any things that were presented, something that passed, something that you were able to stop, anything you can share with us about any voter suppression legislation that was proposed and or passed.
I'll start with this, and let me pull to my wall, because I keep this on my wall. This is an article from My Race where it says the losing candidate wants the FBI or wants a new probe. When I ran for Senate in 2016, I ran against a gentleman who was a well-funded accident attorney. I forget what you call it, but in any case, he at one point when he was losing, and he was losing because the vote by mail ballot was coming in, he actually had hired private investigators, and they had an investigation with sheriff officers and other people after the election to go to people's houses, right? And many of the people who voted by mail at the time were people who had gone to my church, people who were friends or family members, people who I'd known personally, right? You go after the low-hanging fruit first. Dr. Osgood, you talked about those people, professional people, where you look at the list and the names are there and you're like, they haven't voted. Well, we were picking up on those people by making sure that they cast votes. And this gentleman hired police officers or did an investigation. And what happened was a lot of those people, well, some of them, I can't say a lot of them, maybe 10 or so would call me and say, hey, I voted for you and you had the sheriff come to my house, right? or you had an investigator come to my house. What is going on? I'm never voting again. Because the question was, well, you usually don't vote or you missed a lot of elections, but you voted this time, right? And they made a whole big deal out of it. Well, everything was done on the up and up. But when you start having a governor who now has the his own personal police force to be able to police people who he thinks have illegally voted, which will be people who look like you and me, then those people who traditionally may not want to vote, but may vote just because Dr. Osgood is running, and that's their girl or their lady, they may not want to vote again when you send the sheriff to Black folks' house, or you send the FDLE officers to Black folks' house. So this new police enforcement bill that gave the governor a police force to, they call it voter protection, is anything but. In the free state of Florida, we have a lot of new restrictions that are being placed on people who were supposed to be free, and that is problematic.
Will we see those at any of our polling places eventually?
On this round, no. What has to happen is they'll start an investigation if they think maybe too many people in one area requested to vote by mail, or they think it's a voting irregularity where a lot of people are coming out to vote. Maybe somebody has been on the ballot who's never been on the ballot, and a lot of people in one area start going to vote or voting by mail. Then they'll send a police force. Or even if they have an inclination, someone says, I believe someone can have a complaint, and then they'll go and investigate it due to this legislation. So we've got to be very, very careful. And I asked the question to my colleague when he was filing the bill, what data, documents, and evidence do you have that this is necessary? And he had none whatsoever. They want to, and it was Travis Hudson, he said, we want to get ahead of this. And there were, he said there were 6 incidents. Now, 21.5 million people in the state of Florida. There are more 6 incidents of people calling me that their rent has increased by more than $1,000, that their property insurance has changed. But 6 incidents, and by the way, the incidents that I know of happened in the villages with Republicans who voted for somebody in Florida and then mailed the ballot to another state. 6 incidents. By the way, if we want to talk about that, there are incidents in which Republicans have put people in races in the Senate that have caused us to lose elections, but there was nothing in this legislation that we have done to stop illegal candidates. 6 incidents caused them to come back and redo how we do elections. And we allocated a whole, allocated a whole new plot of money to create a state agency for this particular issue.
Thank you. Rep. Driskell.
I just want to add also, because Senator Powell did a great job of summarizing the bill, it will increase the cap on fines of third-party registration groups from $1,000 to $50,000. And so for nonprofits that are just doing the work of trying to help people exercise their right in this republic democracy to vote, if there are mistakes made, we're talking from $1,000 to $50,000. That's a lot of money. And, oftentimes the folks who work with these groups are volunteers. I mean, people really just trying to do good work. And we also know that people sometimes make mistakes. This is way too harsh a penalty. And I can't remember who was talking about it earlier. It might have been Senator Osgood, or could have been Senator, one of the senators, I think, were talking about it, just about how, they're so good at changing the rules, basically, and they're trying to keep us from voting. And people died for us to have this right to vote. And they are weaponizing procedure to try to change outcomes, and they do this all the time. And it's unfair, frankly. If you feel like you got the best candidates and you got the best ideas, come fight fair and square. But what they do is change procedures to try to give them an advantage, and they're trying to make it harder for our people to register. So that's going to be an important change as well.
Were there any changes with the drop boxes? I know here in Broward, the supervisor of elections added some additional drop boxes or entities, places where, like government facilities where people could drop off their vote by mail ballots during this last election with Senator Osgood. What was the end result of any changes to drop boxes, if you know?
Nothing in this bill. That was addressed in Senate Bill 90 last year, but just kind of picking up on another theme of our conversation, they will come back for multiple bites at an apple. So you can just about guarantee that we'll see something else next session as well.
Thank you. Senator Osgood?
Thank you, Rep. Driskell, Senator Powell, Rep. Campbell. I'm still just puzzled, and y'all know me, I can be in academia at probably the wrong time. But teaching public policy evaluation, there needs to be a problem. So what I'm trying to understand is how in 2020, Florida was set up as having the gold standard for elections. What has happened that now we have all these election problems that we need all these bills? You know what's happening? The population is browning. We are becoming more and more of a minority majority. I know Broward County is. So by people moving here or just the growth of people, things are changing. So now we got to go back and we got to weaponize these rules. Dr. Carol Anderson writes this very good piece about white rage. And she says how white rage is ingrained in public policy. And she goes through this whole litany to show us how things happen and then how we retaliate with public policy. We have to make sure that we are electing people that are going to remain unapologetically Black. Through my last two elections, I was really hurt and just didn't even know how to respond when I saw elected officials that I loved, trusted, and respected working with the Republican Party against candidates representing the Democratic Party. And I'm going to speak about it. I'm going to call it out. Some things you just don't do, no matter how you fare out in an election. So not only do we have this policy thing going on, but we have all these intrusions in low-income communities where you're seeing the Proud Boys show up at voting sites. One particular voting site, EPAT Larkins, you average 12 to 14 people there a day doing early voting. I'm a data person, so I look at the numbers right on browardvotes.org. Why do you have a candidate and 8 other people from their team at that particular polling site all day? As a candidate, we go where the most people are casting the votes, but they're there to build relationships, to get in, to carve people off in the community that they can pay to work against us in the 2022 governor's race and these other elections. So we have to make sure that we're talking to our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, and uncle and them. And maybe we got to start putting some money together to help them if they need light bill assistance and rental assistance so that they're not so vulnerable to these people that come in our community and drop $200 or $300. Now, $2,000 or $3,000. We talk about this work, but when it comes to finances and money, we still write the $5 check for the candidate. We don't pool money together to help our community. And as a result, a lot of times they're vulnerable to these playbooks and these strategies that continue. What they are doing is something that they have done for years. You can watch the Rig documentary. You can read Democracy and Change. It's nothing new. They just reactivate it every so often. It is a proven strategy that they know that will work, where they'll continue to gain leverage on us. And we have to start strategizing, and we have to start training and developing quality people to run for office so that it's more of us at the table running for these seats and making decisions that's going to help move our community forward and not hurt them. That's why I'm so excited about young people like Rep. Campbell, Rep. Driskell, Powell, you in my age group, but these young people we have that are doing a great job, we need to continue to encourage them and support them and get more young people involved with this process.
Thank you. And as we wrap, I want to let you know who you're chatting with. In addition to NAACP, as we have representatives certainly from I'm just going in order that I saw them on the list. The Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. I see Sabaz Temple of Shriners. I see Delta Sigma Theta, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Black Firefighters. I see Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, and even got some of those shimmying brothers over there for Kappas here listening, learning, and in addition to certainly our presidents around the state. So give us a couple of minutes of advice for us NAACPs, us nonprofits as we continue on, because we are in the middle of this fire that's burning right now, and the time is now. I know we have some folk that are afraid about voter registration, but the time is now in order to get this done. I think Dr. Osgood has run about 85 times. Number 86 is coming up. Representative Campbell had to run and carry on. So but we're still in the middle of this whole thing, and so we expect for us who are on this battlefield, who are trying to do this work, what's right and what's just. Give us some words, if you will. We will start with Senator Powell.
Thank you, Madam President, for this opportunity to speak to you all tonight. All I can tell you is when it comes to these elections, when it comes to those of us who are elected and those of us who need to run for office, we have become, as it relates to the next election of governor, some of us have become hopeless, but we need to be hopeful, because regardless of who is the nominee, we have to get people to come out in droves. And what I've seen is, and myself included, we've said, oh, well, it's going to be very difficult to beat this governor. Or we have to know that it is possible, because if we don't do it, the consequences are insurmountable. We see what we have here in the state of Florida, and it's as if this governor is trying to out crazy the rest of the people throughout the nation. And don't forget that I'm in Palm Beach County. I am the senator for the craziest president that we had while I was living. I don't know what came before that. Some of these presidents, I was not alive, but while I've been living, we've had the craziest president that I've ever seen. So we have to be hopeful, and we have to make sure that everybody goes out and votes to get rid of this Ron DeSantis. Because if we don't, if you want to see us as Black folk sit in the back of the buses again, I'm not going backwards. I'm not sitting on the back of nobody's bus. But this is what we're looking at. We have to be the change that we're looking for. And this year in the legislature, I felt it like never before. And I'll tell you, we have to be inspired to do something. Don't just get upset because one Black person that you elected hasn't changed the world. We're not in the positions to do so yet. Until we get enough of us who are chairmen of committees, until we get those of us who control the governor's mansion, until we get an opportunity where we are committee chairs and holding up some of these state constitutional officers, then complain that you had a governor who didn't do anything when you had a Black governor. You had a state attorney general when you have a Black attorney general that didn't do it. But until we get to those spots, let's keep fighting to make sure we get there and stop complaining.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Osgood.
Certainly, I think that this is a time for us to do some reflections. And y'all know me, I'm gonna keep it real. Whatever you got with somebody for 5 or 10 years ago, it's time to let it go. We have to come together and support those that are in elected office as elected officials, whether it's the head of our NAACP, our Panhellenic, all the other groups that do this great civic work. We have to come together and move forward on behalf of our community. I don't want my 7-year-old grandbaby Kyla to still be fighting for her right to vote, to still not be able to go to a good public school in Florida and be respected and have literature with people that look like her. As we're talking about this school stuff, I said, we just got to a place where we have Black characters in books in schools. So now we're going backwards again. But we have to come together in our communities and do what we need to do for the community. This is not the time for parochial self-interest. If we really get honest about it, God uniquely created all of us and we're wonderfully made. So all of us are that in a bag of chips. But together, we more than a bag of chips. And we have to find a way to pull together to move our communities forward, to respect the leadership that the community has put in place, whether you like the person or not. If the community voted for them and they won the election, they are in those spots right now. If the NAACP has an election and they choose their president, that president is leading that NAACP, and we need to work together and support. I'm also going to do this plug. Marsha ain't going to do it, but I'm going to do it. We need to register and become members of the NAACP. Why? Because when we're in these battles, it's the NAACP that has the capacity to file lawsuits to fight for us. Some of this stuff is going to have to be fought in court. And we need to support organizations like the NAACP. When we was going through the mass issue, the first thing I did is call Marsha. If you think about it, she was the first person you saw, me and her, on the first press conference. And then she organized the lawyers and we began to move forward. So we have to talk, strategize, put our resources. Sisters, it's just one less weave job, $125 that you can give to the NAACP and other things. One pair, $50 Steve Madden shoes. And I ain't gonna even deal with the Louis Vuittons and that stuff. But those investments, if you just miss them one time and put them into a candidate or an organization in our community like the NAACP, the return on investment won't just make you look pretty, it'll make you look pretty, feel pretty, and it will protect you. Because the way we're going with all these laws, a lot of us gonna be facing penalties and potential to go to jail. And when you in there with them orange khakis, they ain't gonna let you go get your weed done. You're gonna have to roll it with brown paper bags and just do it how you do it while you're there. So take those resources and invest them in things in our community that's gonna give us a greater return on investment, because it's gonna allow us to impact the community and not just make us feel good or look good.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Driskell.
I mean, when Senator Dr. Osgood says she keeps it real, she keeps it all the way real. Just love it. I want you to know the very things that you see the opposition trying to stop, that lets you know that those very things are typically the things that we need. There's a pattern. The very things that they try to stop or obstruct usually are connected to the very things that we need. And the NAACP is such a strong line of defense. Someone put in the chat about raising money so that on a moment's notice, folks can get up to Tallahassee. And I think that would be a very good initiative. But just know that until you get organized to that point and raise those resources, that you are represented very well by the Florida Conference of NAACPs, the State Conference of NAACPs in Tallahassee. Strong representation who shows up at the committees, who speaks on the bills or waves in opposition or in favor of a bill, and make sure that is carried forward, and that makes sure I feel like as a Democratic leader that I have been well equipped to know what the NAACP's position is on a particular piece of legislation as well. So know that you have good representation there. And then beyond that, what I would say, I want you to think back to 2016, and I want you to think back to how you felt when you woke up on November 9th, 2016, and were asking the question, how could your country do this to you? And I want you to think about how you felt when you woke up after Election Day on 2018 and realized that we lost by such a narrow margin in Florida from having a Democratic governor for the first time since Lawton Chiles. I want you to remember how you felt. I want you to remember the conversations that you had with your family, with your friends, with yourself in the mirror, okay? And just how horrible that felt. And then I want that energy to drive all of us to do more, because there always is more that we can do. You can't take it for granted that your friends and family vote. You can't take it for granted that your neighbor votes. We cannot take anything for granted. And until we have worked so hard that we have left it all on the field, we have all got to be sure that we do more, because we cannot leave it to chance in 2022 and beyond. Ron DeSantis is going to run for president. He is. He's running for re-election right now for governor. And your best chance to stop him or to slow him down in his quest for world domination, to lead the free world as we know it, is to try to stop him in Florida. You are the line of defense. Remember what it felt like in 2016 and 2018, and then do more. We can all do more. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Driskell. Representative Campbell.
Oh man, that's all the amazing points. I always hate to follow up after all of them. But the thing I would say that I got a little insight into while I was in the Capitol is that the other side operates off of fear. They do all these tactics to scare us from not acting. They enact these fears so much that they put fear within their own side in lining up to vote on issues that they themselves do not believe in. And so I would say we have to be fearless. We have to be fearless. Don't let them tell us what we can and cannot do. We all have to take a piece of this rope and get involved. And we have to find our place. I'm not saying that you're that person to run for office. I'm just saying you have to reach out to somebody to ask, what can you do? Where is your footing in this place? How can you pass this message to ensure that your neighbor votes, to ensure your child votes, to ensure your husband votes, your wife votes, your family votes? We have to figure out how to come together as a collective and not get beat down when we see things don't go our way. It's funny. I was talking to a client of mine today, and we were talking about leadership. And the one thing is that when you're losing, it's hard to be a leader. It's everybody starts pointing the finger at everybody else and not looking at what is it that they're doing. And so find what you are capable of doing, what you can do, how effective you can get, and bring a coalition together, and let's get at this. We're not done. We have so much hope flowing throughout this caucus, throughout this organization, throughout our party, and we need everybody's help. It's no more that you can sit on the sidelines. You're going to have to get past those fears and step into the game. And don't worry, you're not in this by yourself. If you don't know which way to go, find somebody that does, and they'll help you, guide you to that. But we need all hands on deck, and nobody can sit the bench anymore. We need your help. We need your assistance. You are worth every bit of it. So get in the game and let's do this.
Thank you, Representative. Before we go, I want to have Jasmine Shirley come on and talk a little bit about this for a few minutes about this COVID-19, because y'all think it's over, but I'm still wearing my mask because y'all not gonna trick me in here. Jazz, if you just give us an update real quick on COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Madam President. It's my pleasure to give you an update. No, we are not over with COVID-19, and we will not be over with COVID, period, until well over 2.5 billion people in the world have some kind of protection. Yes, it appears that, and I said appears that our new cases, especially with the Omicron, our new cases are trending downward, but that's only in people who have already had some kind of protection, whether that protection was through natural immunity, meaning they were exposed to COVID, they recovered, or they got vaccinated, completed their series and their boosters. There's still some breakthroughs. So for those people who are not vaccinated, you are ripe and prime for being exposed to the virus, and that virus mutating once again, as Omicron has already changed now, it's into its second variant, which is even more transmissible than the original Omicron, which is even more transmissible and deadlier than the Alpha and the Delta was, because viruses, like people, change to survive. And that's the only way that the virus can survive. So people have to get some form of protection. I highly encourage everyone, those who have not been vaccinated, those who are still waiting for more information and more facts and what have you, get the information that you need, call me. I will help you get whatever you need to convince you that you need some form of protection. It's a very easy series to complete. The shots do not hurt at all. They are free. And if I personally have had to deal personally with COVID, it is nothing to play with. And the financial impact to your household is nothing to play with. So I urge and encourage everyone, do not think we have won this fight. We have not. We will not win this fight until the world has some kind of protection. So you owe it to yourself and your own responsibility to protect yourself and your family and those around you. Do all the things that we would normally do. Just use common sense. If you're in crowds, whether you're outside or inside, if you are in a public crowd and you don't know anything about the people around you, if they're protected or not, you could be exposed to someone who is in that crowd carrying that virus. And it is nothing to play with. So I urge everyone to please use common sense, use the W's, wash your hands, watch your distance, wear your masks, especially if you are in an outside or an inside crowded public situation, and use common sense to protect yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jazz. And Judge Holmes, real quick, and then we'll close out.
Yeah, I just have a question for Jasmine, because she touched upon it. She says they're free. Yesterday, I heard on World News Tonight that the Pfizer says that we need a 4th shot, and that unless Congress passes another bill, that shot will not be free. We'll have to pay for that. So can you check into that? Because
yes, I will check into it. I have seen what some of the prices or what some folks that are out there now who are pumping that 4th shot. And the reason why this 4th shot is being pumped right now, it was originally for those who were immunocompromised, because we know that the antibodies over time, that protection that you have been given wanes off. And so whether it's 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever that time frame is, you need a little bit more boost to get us through this next season. You know, we're still in the flu season. And flu and all viruses combine together and wreak havoc at the same time. So, but what I have seen some prices out there as little as free, because some people are still going to try to do it for free, like the health departments. Some insurance companies have been paying up to $50. That's about the most expensive one that I have seen in terms of what some folks are going to charge for a vaccine.
Yeah, because Walgreens told me it would be $79, and that Blue Cross Blue Shield would probably cover up to $50 of that.
Yes, most of the insurance companies will probably cover up to $50. It probably, and when I say the 50, it's because they already know what it takes or the amount and cost of what it took to produce it. So it was not like making a profit, other than there are some folks out there that want to make that extra $25 profit.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam
thank you.
President.
And real quickly, Senator Powell, Mr. Smith called me from Palm Beach County, called me 3 times. There was a individual there who filled out a petition in his name, and the supervisor of elections office put his voting status on hold because the signatures didn't match. And so he had to find time. He's 70 years old, and he has struggled to get down there to present ID and then sign whatever he needed to sign. So I've asked him to, he's not in your district, but he hadn't gotten a call from his. So I've asked him to reach out to your office to share with him. So there may be others. The lady who they traced it back to actually lives in Jacksonville, but his status was here. It was in Palm Beach, and would not have been able to vote had he not opened the mail and then went down to see what was going on. But he spent hours getting it done. Thank you. Okay, we'll finish it out. Judge Holmes, if you'll close us out, please.
All right, Father, we thank you for this meeting tonight. We thank you for what our ears have heard, and God, most importantly, what has entered into our hearts. God, I ask you now to bless each and every one of these officials, these elected officials, as they go about doing the business for the people that elected them. And God, it may seem hard, but you said in your word that you would be there with them and you'd go before them. And just like you did for Israel, you'll help us to make bricks without straw. And that the more that we are oppressed, the more you will multiply us. God, we ask you now to stay the hands of the oppressors and let every one of these elected officials know that no weapon formed against them will prosper, and every tongue that rises against them in judgment is condemned. Tonight, we pray for Sister Bridget's brother. God, where he is, wherever he is, God, you are a God of Jehovah Rapha. You are the God that heals. God, we ask you now to send your angels, minister to him and raise him up, give him a testimony. And God, tonight we pray for Judge Brown Jackson as she goes through this system, this process. And God, all the tongues that are wagging against her, let them be confounded. Let them be confused as they talk about her. And God, I ask you now to pray for my President Marsha Ellison. She has so many things on her plate. She has a good heart and she wants to see good come to our people. God, keep her strong, keep her in the center of your will. God, bless all of the other presidents on this call tonight. Bless all the audience, and God, prosper us in our way so we can contribute to these campaigns and keep the good people in office. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.